Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jadley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, an iHeartRadio Best Kids and Family Podcast Award nominee. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very, very honored and so grateful that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Stitcher Radio, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is Fabio Napoleoni. He is here to celebrate his absolutely beautiful picture book, Dragonboy. Hey, Fabio, welcome to the Reading with Your Kids podcast. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm really excited. You know, when my wife looked at the calendar and she saw the note that I was interviewing Fabio, she got all excited. She goes, Fabio, I love Fabio. I goes, it's not that guy.
No. I'm about 1.5 feet shorter, and the hair is not as luxurious. That is for sure.
But you don't have the height, and I certainly don't have the height, and I certainly don't have the hair. But you have a great children's picture book. Tell us all about Dragonboy, please.
Well, Dragonboy is based on my son Marcus, who he was our first child, and he was basically the only child for the first 6 years of his life until our daughter Lauren came along. But he was always he always seemed a little older than what he was. I mean, my mother, who was a college professor, would babysit him. So I think he learned big words right from the get-go. And she would take him to classes with her and things like that. So he was always surrounded more with adults than he was with children of his own age. But he always had just a vivid imagination. I don't know if that came from also playing, little video games or little tiny Game Boys or anything like that. But he just seemed to be content with being on his own sometimes. And even if we were in a room full of people, he would be on the couch and he would be talking, or he would be doodling or doing little things like that kept himself entertained. He wasn't always looking for that sort of that parent attention that, come do this with me. He was kind of content. He would sit at the table with adults, or he would be sitting on the couch. So I based it on him and just a little imagination that he had when he was younger. And this is a concept that I've had, I want to say for almost 10 years. And it's taken this long, really, for it to come to the point where it's a book. So these are stories that are 10 plus years old. And now him being almost 23, it's a weird balance. You have a children's book based on your son who's now almost graduating college.
I'm curious, what was his reaction when he first saw Dragonboy?
He actually, I want to say it was 2008, I believe. He has the very first concept painting that I did of Dragonboy. He has that. So I had finished painting it, and my family doesn't really, the kids, neither do my wife, they never really asked, oh, can I have that after I'm done painting it? But he came in and he looked at it and he was like, can I have that? So of course he has it. He still has it in his room here in the house. It's still in there. And it's in he's attended shows with me, art shows and things like that. And they've always found it funny how people can be attracted to a character in that way. Sort of the same way probably, when you and I were younger, we were attracted to Bugs Bunny or things of, Scooby-Doo and things like that. But he was kind of puzzled by it. And now, when the book was released on the 14th of this month, the night before, as I was, closing my studio down, it had to be maybe 2:30 in the morning. He came out of his room and he said to me, he goes, you have a book. And I was like, yeah, that's funny. He goes, you have a book today. Today you have a book. We need to go to Barnes & Noble and go look at your book. And I was like, okay. So, we went to bed, 10:30 the next day. My wife and I and him, we took a little stroll down the street, went to a Barnes & Noble, and I didn't see it right away, but they both did. They spotted it instantly. And it was pretty neat. And then he asked me for a copy of it, and I thought it was for him to keep. Nope, I signed the inside of it, and he gave it to his girlfriend that he's been with for 3 years.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell us the story, please.
So, of the book?
Yep.
Okay. So it basically, it starts out with a little boy who gets up early in the morning, and, he stretches and yawns and does his thing, and he looks over sort of at a little stuffed dragon that he has. And the little dragon's sort of leaning up against the boat. And as the book pans out, you see his room, and you see all these other stuffed animals that are in there, from the Yeti, the kitty, the sloth. They're all in there. But the most important thing is his suit is hanging off the door. And as he wakes up, he's got his little jammies on. He puts on his little bunny slippers. And as he starts strolling over to get his day going, he touches the suit. And I'm give a little bits of the book away, but as you notice, the suit is very just sort of slumped on the door hook. And the minute he touches it, you see the suit basically comes alive. You see the eyes open up. You see that there's a smile sort of comes to the suit, and the suit sort of is touching his face a little bit. So there's sort of a companion ship there that's building within the picture. He puts the book on. He puts the suit on, and as he puts it on, as he's pulling the pants up and he's putting the hat, the whole nine, you see the characters come to life. Now the Yeti that was in the corner, sort of very small. Now he's a full-grown Yeti, the same size he is, sitting on the bed. And then you see the kitty coming out from underneath there. You see the sloth come to life. You see them all come. And one of the things that I've always envisioned with Dragonboy was, Marcus used to do this too. He'd go to the edge of his bed and he'd jump off. And the minute he would touch the ground, it's like, whoa, he just did something miraculously. So I took that and sort of made it into the minute he leaped and the minute his feet planted, his world came to life. Whatever he was thinking about, that's where he was. So that's where the book continues. He leaps off his bed and he leaps into the same little boat that was on his dresser. So he leaps into it, and now all of a sudden he's in this vast ocean, and he's steering a boat to their destination. And now all like what you see behind me, they're all fully grown, characters. And then they basically land in what he envisions as his beach. They all come out and they explore the day. And you find out from each one of these characters that they're all unique. The kitty seems to, have a mind that tends to wander, get off course every now and then. The Yeti is soft and gentle, and he loves to count daisies. And daisies happens to be my mother's favorite flower, so I threw that in there. And of course, Draco, the dragon, he is sort of a little sporadic. He doesn't know whether he's going left or right, up and down. We know kids like that. Mm-hmm. I worked with kids for almost 7 years, and I dealt with kids like that. That happy 1 second, depressed the next. They want to run. They want to, And then the sloth is, he's slow, and he's in there basically to teach kids how to be patient with a friend who might not move as fast as you, may not think as fast, and he's that character. So they all come together. They explore individually these little pieces in the book. But altogether, the sloth, who tends to move a little slower, and he tells you in the book that sometimes when you rush through everything in life, you tend to miss things. But since he's a sloth and he moves slow, he seems to capture more of your day-to-day life because he's able to observe things because he does move slower. And they end up discovering a little unicorn that's up in a tree who happens to be upset with herself because she doesn't think she's what she's supposed to be. She's supposed to be this unicorn with magical powers and flying, and she doesn't feel that she's any of those things. But these guys come along, and they assure her that she's exactly who she's supposed to be. And they talk her down from the tree. They all befriend her. And then at the end of it, there's this beautiful little scene where the sloth is sort of breakdancing, which is kind of humorous because breakdancers move really fast. Exactly. So he's really slow, and you see Draco sort of flying through the air, and Dragonboy and Carly, which is the unicorn's name, they're sort of doing these pirouettes, sort of like ballet dancers. And then at the end, the next page, it's sort of I borrowed from The Wizard of Oz. I've always liked when they were all lined up and we're off to see the wizard. Mm-hmm. They're all skipping. I have them all lined up that way. But as you look carefully into their images, the sloth's feet are not touching the ground, so they wouldn't have to. He wouldn't be behind, or they wouldn't have to be dragging him. So it's kind of funny, little things like that throughout the book. I threw my son's birth year in there. Those are the daisies that Darwin is counting. Uh-huh. He's up to 1,998. That's the year my son Marcus was born. And then, for instance, Dragonboy will say, "Oh my God, that's 26 more than yesterday." That's how old my wife and I were when we had him. So I threw in little hints like that in there. So at the end, they're back home. He's back in his bed, and he's about to nestle in. And again, it pans out to his room, and you see where they're all sort of, Draco's climbing the dresser to get back where he was next to the boat. Darwin here, the Yeti, he's sort of getting back into place with his little blanket that's covered in daisies. Just little things like that. And you see that Simon the sloth drew on his wall the tree where he found Carly. So there are little added things in there, which gives you the impression that these guys, they were stuffed animals, they're really alive, and the unicorn, Carly, sort of is waving goodbye as she's ready to go. That's the one thing that we've saved to the very, very end, is that Carly is by the door and she's waving goodbye. She's not coming into his room. And then you come to find out that Carly is actually Dragonboy's little sister's stuffed animal, and her name is Molly. So the book ends with the last scene being Molly's room, and there's a back view of that where you see Molly in bed, cuddled up now with a stuffed version of Carly.
Wow.
And it's a lot of little things in the book that I've incorporated from my art career into the book. So it's like my collectors, who are the majority of them are over 40. They all love the book, because outside of reading the little story, which is cute and adorable, they love the little hints. The butterflies that have heart-shaped wings, and all these little things in it. The trees that are intertwined and look like they're dancing, things like that.
A lot of people, they kind of look at children's books as, oh, it's just a kid's book and it's just a cute little story, and that's wonderful. But as you're talking about Dragonboy, there's so much there. Mm-hmm. And we talk about, we joke a lot about the fact that, parents is like, oh, my kid wants me to read this book for the 500th time. My head's going to explode. And there are certainly some books that, 5 readings of the same book is going to make you crazy. But Dragonboy sounds like this, like a new experience every time you pick it up. And I think a family can really work to create a new experience. And certainly, as I'm looking at you and looking at the illustrations in the book, the first thing that pops into my mind is Dragonboy is a perfect book to take a picture walk through before you even read the story. Just cover up the words and walk through the book with your kids and ask them, what do you think is going on?
Exactly. Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that you say that. Because creating a book is a whole new experience for me, and I thought I was under this impression. I don't know if it's my being full of myself or whatever, that I thought, I'm like, oh, it's going to be easy. I'm going to paint 40 images, and that's not the case at all. It's sort of like you're creating a tiny movie, even though it is a children's book, and the words have to fit to the image and the editing over here, and I was just not used to painting that way. purposely leaving, an open area, and trying to balance that out. It was kind of a little weird to me. But my goal was always when I do a painting, I'm trying to capture the best of your thoughts or an emotion into one painting. And so when we put this together, that was my goal, to always try to do something where you didn't have to look at the words. The picture almost tells you, what's happening from this point to this point to the next one. And then when you go around and you read it, then you're like, oh, this is what I thought, or maybe it isn't what you thought. But that's always the fun part too with art is someone else's view on how they see it. And I'm curious once, hopefully everything gets back to a little bit normal. I'd love to actually hear our kids' point of view on how they look at the artwork, what they see in it, because that stuff feeds me. That's my fuel. I enjoy that probably more than anything. I love hearing someone else's perspective on it. And kids are blunt and upfront, and they tell you exactly what they're thinking. And I look forward to that.
Yeah. I'm interested. You mentioned that you were painting all the images. So that's your technique, brush and paint.
Yeah, exactly. It's I don't know if you can see them. There's this is my little studio. It's in my garage, and then my paints are here. I have a giant 11 drawer, like a tool drawer, and it's just filled with paints. This entire area here is a giant mess. Thank God you don't get to see that. But yeah, these are all done individually by hand. And I try to, so let's just say there's so many scenes that are created with a background that has woods. So I'll do all those together at one time. So I could be painting 6 or 7 pieces. Typically I don't do that. I do one at a time. But with the book, the big concern with the people who edit is that the colors remain the same. So you don't want to start doing a wooded scene here and then try to come back 2 weeks later to that same scene. And even though you're using the same colors, whether you add a little more brown at the beginning or at the end, it will change how something looks. It does. And it's weird because you think it's like, oh, it's the same colors. It is, but the application of those colors makes a difference. So I try to do them all at one time, and then go to, like, if it's a field, then do the field pieces all together at the same time. So then the color, it's consistent throughout the book.
That's really fascinating. I am somebody who, I've been called an artist, but I create art with my magic and telling stories through, using props to do a trick. I'm really envious of somebody who can use their hands and paints or pencil to create a beautiful image, or an image that, strikes some emotion in somebody. Are you ever tempted to say, the paint's beautiful, but it's really hard. And if I make a mistake, it's really hard to fix. And maybe I should just use a computer where I can just hit a button and things change for me.
It's, the thought of that did occur. And I know some artists that are able to use Photoshop or I'm trying to think of there is a tablet that you can do that with. And these guys, one of them, for instance, worked with animation, so it's easier for them. I do use my concept art for when I submit that to Little Brown. That's all done digitally through an Apple iPad Pro. That's always the easiest because, you create your layers, you're able to edit it. In that sense, I'm able to, if they request, hey, can you edit this and get it back to us by this afternoon? I can do that because I'm not going back to a piece of paper and having to do that all over again, which would just give me like 1,000 sketches at the end of the day. But when it comes to painting, there's just something about that I enjoy. I mean, I like the digital aspect. Would it be easier? Sure. You tap on the green. I don't like that green. Let me use this green instead. So, I mean, I have books upon books of where I just take a little dab of ink, put it on there, write the brand, the color hue, whether it's deep or whatever it is. And then I create Dragonboy uses these specific colors, and in order of importance, sort of, this is the most prominent color, and then down to the little green on his fingernails. and then I do the same thing for all the characters. So then I never did that before. By creating of a book, I had to, because I didn't want to, creating one image at a time for the fine art world, you can vary a little bit from the show in Denver to the show in Orlando because it's not the same crowd of people. But if you're going to have people collect a book, then you want to have it as consistent as possible. And I just like painting them. I like the little imperfections here and there in his face and the horns, and those are just, I just prefer to do it that way.
Oh, that's like I said, I find that fascinating. And one of the reasons I love doing the podcast is I get a chance to talk to artists in different fields and just ask these questions. If I were to meet you at an art gallery at a showing, I never presume to take the time to ask you these questions. So I really appreciate being able to do that.
Yeah.
Tell me, as you're creating the story, did you start the story as an author first and then create the illustrations? Was it something that went hand in hand, or did the story change as you were creating the illustrations?
Yeah. So with putting the story together, there was a concept to the story, and so I knew, like I said, the leaping from the bed, mm-hmm. getting up in the morning. He's underneath that little his dragon suit. He has no hair. He's a bald little boy. He doesn't have any. He just a little round ears, and that's about it. So the art aspect of it, all the voyages and things like that. That was the idea for that has been done over the last 8 years. So he's been in a ton of different scenarios, and so I knew I could pull from things that I have done in the past and sort of paste the ideas together that would go into a book and then create something completely new from that. But as far as the story went, that was the part that was probably the toughest for me. The painting, not so much, but it was the getting the words to fit, with this scene. And sometimes the words fit with the scene, and sometimes the words lead you to the following scene. So that was the part where I'm like, oh, why would you put that here? That doesn't really make much sense, but then it technically does, because you're not doing one painting at a time. You're combining 40, individual paintings to create one story. So the story did change, not the the solid premise of what we wanted to capture, but, whether it was 3 lines here or only 1 line on this page, little things like that. Do we chop these 2 lines together and separate it into 3 pages? And then, so that was the part that was the toughest part for me in trying to, and it really depends on what is said on the page and what you draw and you paint.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that was I think we went through about maybe four revisions of this story. And it's when you look at it, you're like, how do you revise that 4 times? It does when you're trying to coordinate art with the words. And I know now, I understand why some authors write books and then they get someone to illustrate that. When you have the same guy do a concept for a painting or for a book, and then you're like, it's tough. And I love the people who helped me along the way. But if this thing was solely up to me, my son would be 47 by the time this thing would be completed.
Well, we're really happy that he was able to enjoy that in his college years and share the book with his girlfriend. Such a sweet story, and it's obvious that family is so important to you. And that's one of the things that I get as we're talking about Dragonboy, that it talks about friendship and empathy and a real sense of family, and not just family blood relations, but the people that we choose to make part of our family.
Exactly. And there's so many influences in life, and you're 100% correct. They don't always have to come from your family or the people that are closest to you. And I get that from the people that I visit, and when we do shows and things like that, they have some people do, how much they influence when they come and see a show, or the feedback I get from the book, how that influences me. I mean, I pretty much, when someone gives me an idea or says something kind, pretty much write it down, and the influence from that flows forward, and it's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know a good thing right now would be for us to tell people where they can go to find out more about you and find out more about Dragonboy.
Well, I have if you happen to be on Facebook, my personal page is very boring, but I do have a Fabio Napoleoni fan club, and that was created by a collector, I want to say 12, 13 years ago. And it is a closed group because everybody shares personal stories. And I just don't want any regular person to just come across it. It's sort of a community of almost 7,000 people that continuously talk every day about art. And when this book launched, through the roof. I mean, just adults continuously talking about it. And then you can also find me on Instagram and at Fabio Napoleoni. And there is where I post probably more things than I do on the fan page, because it's either concept ideas from when I was doing to the book. I mean, that goes back, it must be 1,500 images, I believe, on Instagram. There's 22,000 people, almost 22,000 people that follow. And it's an organic thing. I have never paid to have followers. I prefer to know a legitimate number of people that actually love the art, opposed to some inflated number of someone who just likes to right. I like getting feedback. I enjoy that a lot. Yeah. So those are my two goal places.
Awesome. And we want to encourage everybody to check out those places. We absolutely want to encourage you to check out Dragonboy. It's available online at the big giant stores, and also help your little independent bookshop. Go give them a call, see if they have Dragonboy on the shelf. If they say no, then just ask politely if they can get it, and that sure will be there in a couple of days. We've had a great time talking to the author and illustrator of Dragonboy. Hey, before we go, you talked about, it was a different process for you, a lot of work. Are we going to see more children's books from Fabio?
Yes, I'm actually working on book number 2 right now. The story has been in the works probably since February of this year. Again, the back and forth on what to take out, what to add in, move here to there. That process has been, given the okay. So then we created images to go along with those. I think out of the 36 or 37 images that I submitted, they all been approved with a couple of changes here and there, which I still have to submit. But once I get the okay, I just go forward. I just finished the cover. I want to say maybe a week and a half ago. Submitted that. It's going to be I can't say.
Okay.
They'll probably kill me. But the cover of this one, I love the way they did it. So I'm looking forward to see the way Little Brown does this cover, because I think it's better.
Well,
so there's going to be three books.
Excellent.
in the series.
Excellent. Well, we're really looking forward to it. Now you have an open invitation to come back and celebrate the release of your next book. Awesome.
Anytime.
We've had a great time speaking to the author and illustrator of Dragonboy, Fabio Napoleoni. Hey, Fabio, now when my wife says, "You were talking to that Fabio?" I'm going to say, "Yeah, that Fabio. The guy with the long hair, he's done. He got hit by a seagull on a roller coaster."
He did. Awesome. Thank you.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Nicole Magistro. She'll be here to celebrate Reed Island. Hey, I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to start by thanking our guest, Fabio Napoleoni. Please be sure to check out Dragonboy. Also want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan, Michael Murphy, Rory Grady. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.